What is going on, everyone? Yes, this is Andrew from Drew Code Sports Talk, and I wanted to do a emergency Drew Code episode, so that way we don't take too much time on the regular episode of Drew Code talking about our Raiders. But we will still be talking about it, but it will be a little bit shorter. That way we can talk about everything else that has happened in the sports world just this past 2-3 days. So the news has come out earlier today that Antonio Pierce was fired from the Las Vegas Raiders. So now we are going to be paying 3 head coaches. Well, actually 4. We're still paying Gruden. We are still paying McDaniels, and now we are still going to be paying Pierce, and then whoever new coach we get. Now, there's a couple of things, or a couple of coaches that I look at as of right now on who could be the coach, and it could go in a few different ways. So there's a lot of things that not only is Tom Telesco going to have to think about, but also Mark Davis. They're going to have to figure out what they want to do. And the main culprit here is what are the Raiders going to do at the quarterback position? And that is first and foremost what the Raiders are going to have to figure out. So the main thing here is, what are the Raiders going to do at quarterback? We have to figure out what that's going to be. And here's the thing. If you're not understanding where I'm going with this is what I mean. So now it really is going to depend what Tom Telesco, because this is really going to be his baby here, what he's going to want to do in the draft. Is he going to draft a quarterback that he feels is going to be the future? Okay, by all means, the Raiders need a quarterback. That's first and foremost. We've seen Aiden O'Connell. We've seen Gardner Minshew. We've seen Desmond Ridder. Nothing special there. Unfortunately, it sucks. There are some people who believe that Aiden O'Connell should get a shot. I'm not one of those people. I think I've seen enough of him. I see a lot of throws, a lot of plays that he has made that he just isn't there. I think he's a tremendous backup, and I would love to keep him. But here's the thing. So if they're going to go after a young quarterback in the draft, so let's say they trade up. Even if they're not trading up, let's say they end up getting a quarterback in like the 2nd, 3rd round area. Like a Will Howard, a Dylan Gabriel, a Jalen Monroe, someone like that. You're going to want to go after a coach who's an offensive-minded head coach. And the reason being is you need that quarterback to be successful. So in order to build up a quarterback, you have to have an offensive-minded head coach. It's almost a requirement. Like you can't go into a season with a young quarterback with a guy who doesn't really know how to coach up a quarterback. And you go, well, what do you mean? A defensive-minded head coach is not going to be tremendously successful when it comes to young quarterbacks. They're going to know what not to do. But if you look at, Matt Eberflus, for example, it didn't work out. The rarity that you have is Josh Allen with Sean McDermott, but you're not going to get that most of the time. What you're going to get is you get a Mike McDaniel with a Tua Tagovailoa. Oh, all of a sudden it works. You're going to get an Andy Reid with a Patrick Mahomes. Oh, that works. You look at not Sean McVay. You look at, I'm totally blanking. Sean Payton, excuse me. You look at Sean Payton with Bo Nix. Hey, it works. All of a sudden it works. Why does it work? Well, these are offensive-minded head coaches with young quarterbacks, and they built them up. So this is what the Raiders need to do if they're going to draft a quarterback in this draft. Now, you can make the claim that if they draft a quarterback in this draft, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the starting quarterback, which is fine. If they don't end up wanting to start that young quarterback, then what's going to happen is they're going to have to go after a free agent quarterback, such as a Sam Darnold, possibly, an Aaron Rodgers, possibly. I'm drawing a blank on how many free agent quarterbacks there are going to be. Maybe a Geno Smith, stuff like that. So you're going to have to get a quarterback who is of age. I would be willing to bet a lot of money that Kirk Cousins is going to be out there and available, because you're not going to bench Kirk Cousins in the last couple of games and be like, oh, we were just kidding, we're going to start you again. It's not going to happen. They didn't make that decision lightly, even though it was weird timing, for sure. But what you're going to do is you're going to have to go after an older quarterback, a guy that you're not planning to stay with for probably after 2 years. After year one, you're probably even going to be thinking, okay, we're going to start our younger quarterback now. If you're going to do that, then you can get a head coach like a Mike Vrabel, like a Brian Flores. A Brian Flores is a guy who has a reputation right now that he was really rough with Tua, and he wasn't the guy that they needed him to be at that point into his career. And so that's what I'm talking about, is it depends on what Tom Telesco wants to do at the quarterback position. What does he want to roll with? Does he want to roll with a young quarterback, or does he want to roll with an older quarterback and build his younger quarterback? Now, again, like I'm saying, if you don't want to spend the money on a quarterback, then you go in the draft, you draft a guy, and you see what happens. You have Aiden O'Connell as a backup, which is not bad. Actually, a really good backup to have. And if he has to start because your young quarterback can't handle it, or he's having trouble, or whatever it may be, that you can rely on Aiden O'Connell. And that's fine, if that's the route they want to go with. But let me tell you this. If I see another Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell setup, I'm going to be very pissed off. I'm not going to lie to you. But here are the candidates that I think that the Raiders really need to go after. Ben Johnson, Brian Flores, Mike Vrabel, and I believe you have to take a look at Arthur Smith. I do believe that. I know a lot of people are kind of off on Arthur Smith, but here's the thing. He's proven it to be really good in Pittsburgh, and I think you got to take a look at him. Maybe he's not your number one, but he's a guy that might impress you a little bit more than you think he will. Now, if you go with an Arthur Smith, he's an offensive-minded head coach. You go with Ben Johnson, he's another offensive-minded head coach. If you go with either of those guys, then that tells me, as a Raider fan, that, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to have a young quarterback. We're not going to be good year one. So Raider fans, listen to me closely. The Raiders are not going to be good year one with their new coach. It's not going to happen. So we need to stop with this. After a year, we need to fire Antonio Pierce. No. In my estimation, Antonio Pierce wasn't really okay with going with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, but I do feel like Tom Telesco came into this organization kind of being pressured to hire Antonio Pierce. Then when Tom Brady came in and was like, dude, you guys got to let him go. And I think finally they were like, oh, this is what Tom Telesco was saying. We probably need to let him go. So I feel like he was kind of strong-armed into signing Antonio Pierce, and it wasn't what he wanted to do. So now we are here. We are here with what we're going to do. And what the Raiders are going to do, if they go after offensive-minded head coach, we're going to have a young quarterback and probably starting. And Aiden O'Connell is going to be our backup, and we have to be okay with that. We have to be okay with that. The other thing is, if we go after a Mike Vrabel and a Brian Flores, now all these candidates I have no problem with. But if you go with the defensive-minded head coaches, then that tells me you're going to get an older guy. Maybe you draft a young guy, or maybe you just hold off and you stick with Aiden O'Connell as your backup, and you have an older guy, maybe like a Kirk Cousins or something, and you roll with that for a year and see how it does. Now, my thing is, either way, the Raiders really need to get a quarterback. I don't care when, I don't care how, just as long as we get a quarterback. That is first and foremost. First and foremost, we need a quarterback in the draft. We need to draft someone who has potential. Aiden O'Connell is not it. Stop telling me that he is. He's not. Okay? Now, out of the 3 that we had this year, of course Aiden O'Connell was the best one. And I was more on the side of Gardner Minshew when they announced that he was going to be the starter. But now, listen, I was wrong. It was Aiden O'Connell. No question. But he's not the future. I'm sorry, he's not the future. So what we need to do is draft a quarterback. If we get a defensive-minded head coach, sign an older quarterback. I wouldn't recommend going after Kirk Cousins because it's probably going to be a trade. Now, if he gets, if they let him go and pay his money, then I say go after him. I don't really want Aaron Rodgers, but I wouldn't be completely upset with it. And then I also, probably my number one would be a Sam Darnold because, hey, if it works out, then it works out and you have that young guy build slowly. If it doesn't work out, you only sign him to a year or 2, maybe a year player option or team option, whatever, and go from there. So this is my thought process. I'd rather go after an offensive-minded head coach, try and get a defensive coordinator. If I were to guess right now, Ben Johnson is probably my number 1. But if I were to guess on who the Raiders are going to go after, it's probably going to be Mike Vrabel, just because he has that connection with Tom Brady. Mike Vrabel is a good coach, but he's not a quarterback developer. We've seen that time and time again. Now, you could say, well, what about the year that he had Ryan Tannehill, and Ryan Tannehill was like cooking? Yeah, that was actually Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator. So if you really want to talk about that, that's probably going to be more Arthur Smith's department, not Mike Vrabel. So this is my thing. If we do go after Mike Vrabel, I don't hate it. And that means defense is going to be a focal point, which is good. The Raiders had a good defense this year. I'd like to keep that. Then what we're going to have to do is sign an older quarterback, go in the draft, grab a younger quarterback, and then go from there. My thought would be get Sam Darnold as your quarterback and draft either Milroe, Dylan Gabriel, or Will Howard. I like all 3. If Quinn Ewers does come out, I would go after him as well, but it's starting to look like he's not going to. Or trade up and get one of the bigger names like a Cam Ward or a Shedeur Sanders, but don't have them start. And so we'll see how that goes, but that is my thoughts on Antonio Pierce being let go by the Raiders and what the Raiders need to do next. So thank you guys for listening. I know this was a quick episode, but I had to get it off my chest. So I will talk to you later.